And I feel like right now we're asking folks to make sense of these six different lists with these different variables, different parameters, and try to figure out who has pain and who's ready to talk to you. And that's a really good machine learning problem in the sense that those weights are changing every day. The intent signals are changing every day, and no one's really taken a shot at bringing all of that together and ultimately, helping a seller and learn with them, because where you spend your time is the most important thing you can control each day.
Welcome back to another episode of the Sales Gravy podcast. With me on this episode is Keith Peiris. He is the CEO of Tome. This is an AI application that does a lot of amazing things. Primarily, it helps you target and get into and squeeze into some of the biggest accounts with some information and data and insights that just really help. And he's going to use this term, but I'm stealing it from him, amplify you as a human being. Before we get started, I want you to go check out Sales Gravy University. Sales Gravy University is where sales teams and salespeople from all over the globe come to enhance their sales skills. And if you've never taken a course on Sales Gravy University before, you can take one right now by going to learn.salesgravy.com, learn.salesgravy.com, use the code free course. And we've got a bunch of new courses on AI now, so you can choose any of those courses and take it for free. That's learn.salesgravy.com. Keith, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
So I found you because looking at your app, I'm a big proponent of using AI to help salespeople target. And I'll give you just a little bit of a pitch on this, and then I'm going to let you run wild with it. We've been doing industrial sales in the United States or in North America and in Western countries for 125 years. And I say industrial level sales, like we do sales like no one else in the world does sales. We have systems and processes. We built tech around this. And after 125 years, we still suck at building lists. So we tell salespeople, go find opportunities, and they don't know where to go. And there are really smart people like you right now that are thinking about this problem, because to me, this is the holy grail. Like the holy grail is AI gets into your CRM, it gets outside your CRM, and it brings together data, and it says to you, this is where you need to be spending your time. This is who you need to talk to. And these are the things they're going to want to talk about. And if you can do that every single day, all of a sudden you're standing in front of the right executives at the right time where there's a buying window open with the right messaging, and you can grab their attention. And suddenly, as a human being, like you're having good conversations. So I want you to run with this concept of salespeople and sales teams suck at targeting and suck at building lists, and AI is really good at it.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm excited to dive in. I think one of the biggest issues that we all have as sellers is that there are a lot of lists. I bet you've got a centralized go-to-market strategy or RevOps team, and they build a list once a year, once a quarter, and then they're building it with sort of firmographic info, like how big is the company, what's their hiring plan, and then that gets handed to a seller, and then the seller is thinking through what relationships do I have, and that's a different list. And then there's another list of what's changing in those companies. Are they releasing a new product, a new service? Do they have a big new offering? Are they, acquiring a company? And then you've got this other list of, companies that you've been successful with in the CRM. And I feel like right now we're asking folks to make sense of these six different lists with these different variables, different parameters, and try to figure out who has pain and who's ready to talk to you. And that's a really good machine learning problem in the sense that, those weights are changing every day. The intent signals are changing every day, and no one's really taken a shot at bringing all of that together, and ultimately, helping a seller and learn with them, because where you spend your time is the most important thing you can control each day.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I love that you said that, because it truly is like the choices that you make about time are the most consistent predictors of success. And the greatest waste of time for a sales professional is standing in front of the wrong prospect at the wrong time. And this concept of this dynamic intent data and being able to consolidate that in one place, and literally every day or every month or every week, you've got a list of prospects that you're focused on is powerful. And if you move up the scale into enterprise, it's going to be a lot, a lot slower process in terms of that intent data changing. And when you're working in smaller and shorter cycle deals, it could be literally every week there's a different problem that they're facing. I also think that, and I want you to address this, that we always have a tendency to talk about pain in sales. Like, I'm looking for places where there's pain. With larger accounts, a lot of times I'm trying to get ahead of the curve and focus on where there might be opportunities, especially when I'm talking to the C-suite, because the C-suite's really more focused strategically, looking over the horizon versus looking backwards. We've got problems inside the organizations. Middle managers, that's what they focus on. How can AI help us gather up all this data, and not just like looking at industry trends, but looking at this from an executive's standpoint and say, these are the things that these folks are talking about right now. And if you talk about these things, they're going to listen.
It's a good call out. When we started building Tome, we started building it with enterprise sellers, and the first thing we did was just follow them around all day. And one of the first things I realized was, gosh, for your biggest enterprise deals or strat deals, you might be spending a year. You might be spending 2 years chasing down this company, and because we don't have great intent data, we are constantly nurturing those leads. We're trying to find something to send these folks once a month, once a quarter, to try to get in front of them to see if the intent is there. So we help with that, obviously, because you need something to say that doesn't sound like an automated AI bot. But on the flip side, how can you figure out what does the CEO care about? Yeah. What's around the corner? What are they investing in? And we found that the best sellers, they're listening to every podcast.
Yes.
They are reading every 10K, 10Q. They're figuring out what is the exec team talking about on LinkedIn. And then they're developing a POV of, hey, I think this company is going to have this opportunity in the next 6 months, in the next year. And if I can get there ahead of the RFP, then I'm going to have an unfair advantage. So we started to do that with machine learning models. We were like, wait a minute, we can listen to these Spotify podcasts at way faster than you can. We should scan all of your blogs, your investor filings, your analyst reports, and start to build the POV for the seller. And then maybe even compare to other companies in the industry. Like, you might not have an automation strategy, but a lot of your contemporaries do. So it's probably top of mind. And we found that stuff helps a lot with, getting out ahead, as you mentioned.
It does. And I'm glad you said it, because that's one of the big uses of AI for me is like 10Ks and blogs and podcasts, is loading all of that in and having it scan all of that. So I'm basically creating a narrow language model where I'm only teaching it this particular set of data, and then having it build briefing reports for me. And then more often these days, I'll have it go through there and construct discovery questions, so that when I'm standing in front of executives and stakeholders in these large deals, that my questions make me sound informed. Like, so it's instead of telling them something, like I'm going to tell you insight, I ask questions that provoke awareness of insight, and they say, oh, you know this, or you get this. Or my question is demonstrating to them I'm trying to understand you better, which creates a deeper relationship with them. And you're right, AI can do that way faster than we can, and comb through that data. And then if I feel like I need a little bit deeper, like I get something, I get a briefing, and I go, I want to read the context or understand the context, I can go back and actually read the entire document or read parts of that document. But I think that's super powerful in enterprise deals. And like you said, if you're working a deal over 3 years, and I was with a sales team yesterday, and one of the reps, I was their speaker at their sales kickoff meeting, but one of the reps on a panel was talking about a win that she had. It took 4 years. So from the very first touch, and then it took a whole year to negotiate the contract. Can you imagine how much changed, and everything that's happening for her to be able to go back and have insight about what's happening at the industry or the company level? that she's able just to drop into a conversation that makes her sound like she knows what she's talking about. It's crazy powerful.
Oh, it's incredible. I mean, this has been one of my personal learnings now that, I have to be the best seller in my company. I mean, nobody wants to buy software. Everyone wants to buy a solution
Yeah.
to their problem
Yep.
or a way for their business to get ahead. And I think if you can demonstrate that, it almost doesn't matter what you're selling.
You're exactly right. I mean, you're exactly right. And I've always found like, I go back into the 90s when I had, great coaches and great mentors who taught me, focus on business acumen, read the things that are happening in your industry. And back then, I'd schedule 30 minutes every single day, to do reading. And I still think you should do that. Like, I don't think AI is going to take away the burden of you being informed and knowing things. But these days, you can get a briefing on a lot of information really quickly, so you can accelerate your learning in a particular industry space or about a trend that is happening in a particular industry. And I found that even like with trends, I found AI is so good. If I say to AI, can you walk me through 4 big trends that are happening in this particular space? It's pretty good at pulling those trends out, or at least getting me in the right direction so that I can do a deeper dive into that. Whereas before, I'm staring at a white piece of paper and going, let me see if I can figure this out. And as busy as salespeople today, they don't have a lot of time for that. Let's take a shift into CRMs. So in this book, The AI Edge, we have 3 robot rules. And robot rule number 1 is never trust, always verify. And I don't know why robots will lie to you, but I had a bot lie to me the other day ago, and I'm telling you, it told me with a straight face, like you're sitting here smiling at me, just like that. That's how it was. Now it told me about a study that was done by the University of Florida, like had the whole thing laid out. So I said, can you give me a link so I can go to this actual report? Because there's a couple of things I want to find. And then it had to come clean that it didn't actually exist. And I'm like, oh my God. So you never trust, you always verify. Rule number 2 is that just because AI can do something doesn't mean that it should. So you have to think, is there a better way for me to accomplish this? Or is this something that I should be doing? And then the third rule is that crap in, crap out. So Tome, your application, your software, one of the promises that you have is that we're able to not just take data from intent data that's happening out on social media sites or in blogs and 10Ks and all these other things. We're able to get into your CRM and we're able to analyze the data that's in your CRM and then pull all these disparate parts together and then give you information that says now is the time, or here's what you should be talking about, or here's a question you ask, or here's what you should say, or here's the message you should send when you're working on prospecting. How important is it as we move into this new age of AI where everything is connecting back into the CRM, that the information that you put into the CRM is valid information?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with all of your principles. When I was studying computer science, I remember garbage in, garbage out being one of the first things that I learned. It's funny. I don't think you can be an AI company without being a data company.
Yeah.
And it's really easy to draw a diagram of connecting the CRM to whatever you're learning from the web. But we found a lot of our work is that last 20%. Where we're like, what's in the CRM? How does it map to the outside world? There are like 6 different versions of this company with the same name.
Right.
How do we reconcile that? And then, a seller wrote that they closed this deal because of X, but they actually closed it because of Y. And what we're finding, so much of our implementation is that cleaning and reconciliation process. And honestly, the teams with the cleanest CRMs are the fastest to be able to get insights out of it.
Yes, I love that you said that. So I'm going to say that one more time. So I'm going to repeat that. The teams with the cleanest CRMs are the fastest to get access to this information that allows them to have a competitive edge. So if we just think about the life of a CRM, I'm a little older than you are, but if we flip back to let's go back to 1990. In 1990, your CRM was index cards in a box. Like when people say, open up your Rolodex for all the young people on here, that was your CRM. It was this big circle of names on it. And then in 1992, I worked for a company. Our CRM was on the mainframe. So you'd have a sheet, you'd have a sheet, and you would write down the changes to the account, just like you do now that you type in, and then you would put it in intercompany mail in an envelope, and it would go in intercompany mail to a person who would type it into the mainframe, and then they would send you back a new sheet in dot matrix that you would then put into your 3-ring binder where it belonged, and that was all the data that was in the CRM. And as you can imagine, most people weren't sending their sheets in to get updated on the mainframe. I happen to do that because I do believe in garbage in, garbage out, and I believe that the CRM is the greatest tool that you have, and it served me very well. But most people didn't. Then we moved into. I remember the first one I worked on as a company. We built our own CRM. It was a piece of crap. So then we got Goldmine, which was the bane of my existence for many years until we got Salesforce. And so then Salesforce comes out, and they're like cloud, and this is late 90s, early 2000s, and we begin the mantra. And I know you've heard this. You probably even said this to your own sales team. You've said this to other sales teams. The mantra is, if it's not in the CRM, it didn't happen. So we started that, right? And we started threatening people. If you don't put it in the CRM, we're going to fire you. And not in the history of sales has any company gone and fired their top salesperson for not putting stuff in the CRM, even though we have made that threat for the last 30 years. So, so here we are, 2024, and we have the same problem that we had in 1990, and that is we got a bunch of garbage in the CRM because either the salesperson doesn't put it in the CRM, or instead of having the discipline to go search to see if the record's there, they just create another account, or they have incorrect information in there or incomplete information in there, or the stuff that they put in there, even a robot can't understand those hieroglyphics, right? So we have that particular problem. It goes back to the same problem with lists. Like, we've never been able to build lists, and now we've never been able to get people to use a CRM. My premise here, Keith, is that everything changed in the last year. And that is that sales teams and salespeople, if you want to move faster, to use your term, and you want to take full advantage of what AI can do for you as a salesperson to make your life easier so you can spend more time with human beings, you can what did you say? You can amplify yourself as a human. I love that. Amplify yourself as a salesperson. We have to take the CRM seriously. It is no longer an option to put crap into your CRM. Suddenly, this game got real because your AI, the CRM is going to be a core part of its ability to build better lists, to take the signals that it's getting around intent and compare that against what's in the CRM. And I don't know where you are on this on Tome, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. But I also think that where AI can really help us is as people are adding data to the CRM, AI, way better than human beings, can look at all that data across the entire enterprise for patterns that tell us that something is happening. And sometimes we see those patterns, they're leading indicators that there's going to be a change in the industry, or there is a place where we should be nailing this message because we can beat our competitors, or our competitors having a problem. AI would notice that across an entire enterprise that we've just taken 5 accounts in a row. Maybe they've been in 5 different cities. We've just taken 5 accounts in a row from our competitor. Maybe there's a problem out there we need to pay attention to. And then suddenly it goes out and sees this company's filings and goes, uh-oh, they're starting to lay off people. This is impacting customer experience. We need to go after them hard. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. It was just my soapbox monologue on CRMs for a second, but love to hear your thoughts on that. And then in this idea of how AI starts looking at all the patterns of the information that the salespeople are getting into the CRM through one process or another.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, first to jump in, I'm actually a believer of manually filling out the CRM because we've tried everything internally. The taking call transcripts. There's a bunch of tools that will try to move something from one product to the other, and you lose the meaning. You lose the
Yeah.
meaning of what happened in the call. Like, why did you actually close this deal? Was it because you did 6 months of disco? Was it because they hired a new CRO? Was it because you had an edge in understanding the implementation? The call transcript doesn't know. All these automatic CRM tools don't know. And then you're trying to find patterns on top of this sort of like empty data. And then you're not really equipping the AI. So I'm a firm believer of good manual CRM hygiene, and then you can start to enable those qualities because often the patterns aren't at the company level. It's not that this is a 2,000 person company and this is a 2,000 person company. It has much more to do with like where are they in their
Yeah.
life cycle. Are they trying to launch a new product? Are they trying to overhaul their customer service team? Are they worried about margin? Did they just hire a bunch of new people? It's like those sorts of things where the true patterns emerge, and we can go past the
Yeah.
sort of like data companies of the early 2000s.
I love that you said that. I'm actually I'm impressed, and this may be a moment in history where a software developer, tech CEO, founder said you should put the information in manually so we get the context of what happened. But you're right, because AI is really good at context. I spent about 5 hours. I was driving between Midland, Texas, and San Antonio, having a live like voice conversation because I was driving with my AI, and we were just working on like a brainstorm, and we were ideating, and it was a concept that I wanted to work through, and I just needed to say things and work through them. And the more that I would put it into context, like she would tell me something. I say she, it's still a robot, but she made me feel good. Because when I would come up with an idea, she would tell me how awesome I was. So it was good. But I would give her something, and she would come back with it, and then I would say, let me give you a different context. And then as I would create more context, the output that I was getting from the AI was better and better and better, to a point where at one point I was like, oh my God, like this is incredible. Like this AI really is going to eat us one day, because I mean what she accomplished, but it was only because I was given context. So
Mhm.
I just can't even overstate how crucial what you just said was, that we're getting that in there. But we're going to get to a point now, I think, where executives are going to have to put the hammer down and say, if you don't put it in the CRM, if you don't keep your CRM clean, if you're not adding your notes, if you're not maintaining and managing your records, you might not be able to work here anymore, because this is now a strategic advantage, not just information or data that we're dropping in so that management can come and look and see what you've done. This is different.
Yeah, no, it's completely different. The other thing I would say is that I, I'm always skeptical of these AI companies that say they're going to uncover a strategy or they're going to uncover something for you without that context from
Yeah.
you. Like every time we work with a team, we sit with RevOps and the sellers for hours and be like, "What are your best hypotheses?" And then we feed
Yeah.
the AI that, and then off of that, then we can start to invent new things. But it's never going to be this like one button, we're going to solve outbounding for you.
Yeah, so essentially what you're doing is you're tapping into intuition and then
Mhm.
using that as context for the data, and then
Yep.
testing those different theories to see what's the best path.
Yeah, exactly.
So I got a question for you. I got a couple other things on AI I want to talk about, but I'm just curious about you. I think I heard you say software engineer to now you're selling stuff. So could you give us a little bit of your background and like how you ended up in the sales world and having to run a company and go sell things and deal with people like me who, I think you probably hung around salespeople long enough to recognize that we're all a bunch of nut jobs.
I'm loving serving folks that honestly need to really understand people. I think one of the coolest things about my job now is I'm helping people that are helping companies solve problems. And I think that there is a beauty and a purity to that that matters so much more than the smoke and mirrors.
Mhm.
But in terms of my background, I studied physics. I joined Meta right out of college, 2011, and started working on their search product. And learned a bunch of things that now I'm applying to Tome, which is to say there's like millions of people with the same name. And then you have to figure out, like, gosh, how do we figure out which John Smith you're interested in, which John Smith I'm interested in, what data matters. And then after that, I joined Instagram, and I ran the computer vision product team. So it was the camera that like made you
Yeah.
look cool and that gave you filters and all of this stuff. And after that, I decided I wanted to start Tome. And we started with this idea of building great presentations. And we knew that there would be this big shift with the way people make presentations using AI.
Yeah.
So we launched the product, and we weren't sure exactly who would use it. And then we learned it was honestly go-to-market people that were using it a
Yeah.
lot, because if you're a seller, you're making a lot of decks for new business
Mhm.
meetings, for evaluation, for QBRs. So then we started to talk to these sellers and go-to-market teams that were a little further along, and and then we started to do sort of automatic slide generation for them. And everyone stopped us, on a couple of slides where we were doing basically automated value selling.
Yeah.
We would generate a value pyramid from scratch of going from your offerings all the way up to, key initiatives at the company, all the way up to the business strategy that like the CFO would approve. And they were like, wait a minute, you can do that. I don't want to buy this slide tool. Can you just help me with finding
Yeah.
opportunities, with writing emails
Yeah.
that people don't ignore? I don't have time to get my whole sales team to learn a new slide tool. So the first 5 times we ignored it, and then I think by the 10th time, it's like, this is a much bigger opportunity. And it made me realize that with the sort of tech companies that are going to matter in this era are going to be these knowledge and synthesis companies. It's not going to be a better Microsoft Office
Yeah.
or a better, or a better Salesforce necessarily. I think it's going to be these like really specific tools that help you think and
Yeah.
amplify the way you work.
I agree with you. That's a hell of a background. And I mean, it really is. So, I mean, it's a big background to go from B to C essentially to
Yeah.
to you're dealing with enterprise level people at B to B, and then you're having to do the same thing yourself. So,
Yeah.
so just because it's a sales podcast, you didn't come from a sales background, you're a physicist. So, so if we compared our IQs, I have a very low IQ, and Keith has a very high IQ. So I have to work a lot harder than he does to accomplish about half of what he's able to accomplish with his brain. So walk me through just from a selling standpoint. So you started this company and you're working through all the intricacies. I love that you paid attention to what people were saying to you, and you're like, hey, well, let's make a shift here, because I think you're right about that. I think that the presentation tool is interesting, but the pointing people in the right direction is powerful. Like that's the one thing that we started off this. We have not solved that problem yet. We're close, but we haven't solved it. And the holy grail for me is you come in the morning and you log into your dashboard and you say, hey, here are the people you need to be talking to today, and here's what you need to be saying. That's to me holy grail. It changes everything in sales. But I want to go back just to the basics, okay? So you start selling stuff in the B2B level. Walk me through some of your just key learnings as a human being, that maybe even a couple of places where you ran into a brick wall and you're like, okay, that hurt. I don't want to do that anymore. But the things that you learned about being a seller, that you felt like these are the greatest lessons and this is helping me build a bigger business, that maybe you can pass along to some of the people who are listening, mostly who are career salespeople.
Yeah. I'll start with a bunch of really amateur stuff that I'm sure your whole audience knows already. I first started to sell as a technologist, which is to say I would be like, check out this cool demo, look at this great technology, and fell flat every single time. And then I realized, wait a minute, This isn't like the consumer world where I can just blow you away with technology. I need to better understand what you care about
Yeah.
before a demo or before an implementation can wow you. I was like, okay, what really matters here is understanding like what's this person thinking about and how can I help them? And that got me into really good discovery. And then I realized I had a lot of deals where 4 or 5 calls in, the champion is excited about it, but then they can't get it over the
Yeah.
line. They can't get the CRO to agree. They can't get the CIO to agree. And I was like, oh, I need to start vetting these a little more to understand what does this company care about,
Yeah.
and like what's this company going to invest in? And even though there's a champion on the ground who's excited about this, it might not be worth my time if it's not strategic to the company. So that helps. And then I realized, I think like all enterprise sellers, you have to do outbound. You have to hunt to
Yeah.
get the accounts that you really want. And then I realized to hunt really well, you almost have to develop a POV before you send these
Yep.
folks an email. You can't just wait for the meeting invite to come before developing this POV.
Yep.
I started to imagine like this company is really going to need me for this reason, and now it's my job once I know that to get in.
Yes.
And I actually found that sort of considered consultative approach to really work for our stage and for me as a seller. Um, yeah, go
I mean, I
ahead.
think you nailed it. Like, I was teaching a group of salespeople yesterday. I said, what we have to never forget, and this is our human advantage, and this is where AI really begins to help us, is that it's the relationship that matters more than anything else. So a qualified buyer, like, so you're dealing with for example, you're dealing with a coach or a sponsor, but you don't have the decision maker. That's not exactly qualified. But if you're dealing with a qualified buyer, a qualified prospect, or a qualified stakeholder, if you've got a group of people, and in your world, you're typically probably, especially at the larger level, you're selling to a number of people who are involved at some level of influence in the decision-making process. But your qualified stakeholder's emotional experience as they walk through their decision journey is a more consistent predictor of outcome of any other variable. And when you led as a software, a tech person, you're like, the software is the most important thing here. Look at this. It's amazing, and they're thinking, I don't know. I don't even like you yet. So, and we can't forget that unless when robots start selling to robots, we're all out. That's fine. But the human being is at the emotional level, just making a first decision about, do I like you? And the next decision is, do you listen to me? Like, so you start off and you start asking questions. You've developed a POV, but you're asking your questions around that, and they're talking. They're like, I like this guy. He's like paying attention to me. He's asking me. The next decision they're making is, do you make me feel important? And the easiest way to make someone feel important is to pay attention to them and to step into their shoes and listen to them at their level. They tell you their story, and that's what I love. Like, they're telling you their story, and then they want to know, do you get me? Like, do you understand me? And you just described this, and the way that they know that you understood them is that you tell their story back to them in the context of how you can help them with Tome solve their problems, and that's when they begin to trust you. Because you're talking about, we're going to do all these things, and everybody sees the hype, and they're not going to pull the trigger and make the decision unless they actually believe you and they can trust you. And that's what's so basic about selling. Is, do I like you? Do you listen to me? Do you make me feel important? Do you get me in my problems? Do I trust and believe you? And when you cross that threshold with an yes to all those answers, it becomes almost impossible for stakeholders not to advocate for you or buy from you. And that's how we amplify ourselves as human beings. And my entire pitch on AI is, we're plugging into the machine, right? We're not, the machine isn't taking over. It's not doing things for us. We're moving faster. In fact, this is how I'm going to get as smart as you are. I'm going to plug the machine into me, and I'm actually going to get an unfair advantage. I'm going to lower the gap between, would you go to, like MIT or something like that? Some big.
No, I went to school in Canada.
Oh, in Canada. So,
Yeah.
well, we can lower. We can come back down again. I'm just teasing. So, but you're a physicist, right? So I've got to be able to rise to your level. I can use AI to do that. I can use AI to ask the right questions to get you to tell a story about the things that you're interested in. And this is what Tome does so well, right? Tome is getting you that information, but you still got to go be the human being. And I love that as a physicist and a technologist that you figured all of that out, because what you just described is like the greatest lesson in how to sell. You got to be human, and you better, by God, learn how to hunt.
Yeah, this is true. This is true. And I agree with you on the power of AI. I mean, I'm selling now to companies that sell into compliance, into insurance, into fintech. I need to study this stuff to have any credibility with them. And AI is helping me do this in hours, not weeks.
Yes.
Right. And I think that's like one of the big advantages we can get. We can go from novice to sort of competent in a space very, very quickly.
Absolutely. Okay, let's talk a little bit about God, I love the background. I love I'm talking to a physicist. I feel like we've elevated the podcast now, Ulysses, because we're talking to a physicist from Canada. So, an international physicist. That's what we got. So on your website, and I told you in advance that I was going to poke you on this. You've got this like email thing. We're going to send you an email. It says, "Hi, Jeb," and then there's some stuff beyond that. I'm going to tell you a quick story. I've got a friend of mine who is a software SaaS CEO, and we were in Africa, and we were sitting by the Zambezi River, and because of Elon Musk and Starlink, we have access to the rest of the world. We shouldn't. There's hippos and elephants and what have you. And he gets an email in, and it's from his publicist. And they're writing this article that they're going to be sending to a blog that's featuring him, and it's about publicity for the SaaS product. And he reads it out loud. And as he's reading it out loud, and we're having an adult beverage while he's doing this, as he's reading it out loud, and I'm maybe into the second one because my mouth got a little bit ahead of me. But he's reading it out loud. He's like, "Oh, we have to change that. We have to change that." And I said, "That was written by ChatGPT." And he goes, "No way." I said, "That was totally written by ChatGPT. I mean, that whole thing was written by ChatGPT." And he goes, "There's no way they sent me something that was written by ChatGPT." I said, "Ask him." So he sends a text message to the publicist and asks, and they come back excited about it. They're like, "Yeah, we wrote the whole thing with the robot and sent it to him." He was pissed. Like, he got mad. And the reason he got mad is he's paying them all this money, and they didn't put any effort into it. They didn't even put any work into it. And he ended up firing them. I mean, it was like a $300,000 contract they lost because he was so angry that he felt manipulated and that they didn't work at it. And there's some amazing studies on this. I listened to a TED Talk the other day around how human beings value hard work. And we talk about work smart, not hard. But when you survey people from societies all over the globe, from Western societies all the way into Africa, South America, when you ask people who has the moral high ground, who are the best people, it's always about hard work. So you're a salesperson and you send somebody something and they know that a robot wrote it and you didn't put any work in it, they don't feel like you care about them. They feel like they've been manipulated. And it was this most brilliant lesson in using robots to write for us, which they are very, very good at, and how we as human beings need to soften up the language and remove the patterns so that people feel like we actually put some effort into it. And I've got a couple of things I want to explore down this road before I let you go, but I want to just drop that turd in your lap and let you handle that for a minute. But you can handle it. You're a physicist, so you got this. And talk a little bit about your thoughts on that, and with robots taking over a lot of the communication for us as salespeople, especially when it comes to personalized communication.
Yeah. First of all, I would completely agree with you, which is to say that as a buyer now, I'm getting more emails than I ever have. I'm also getting more automated cold calls than I ever have. I almost need to get a second number for it. And it's funny, my AI meter is going up every day. I can smell it. You can
Yep.
smell it when we're like, wait a minute, ChatGPT wrote
Yep.
this, or one of these AI SDRs wrote this. And not only is our meter going up for this, all the email tools are building
Yep.
spam protection for this. Now Google and Microsoft are going to detect this was an automated sequence. So what does that mean for us as sellers? It means that you need to rise above that. And we're learning actually through hard-earned feedback in our pilots and enterprises that most sales leaders don't want us to write the email because of that.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're moving towards now is here are some topics that you can use to nurture this prospect, to get in front of this buyer, but you have to go the last mile. You have to fill this out, write it out yourself. It's the only way this is going to work. And it kind of reminds me of sort of SEO content,
Yep.
which is to say that, like, 10 years ago, the way to get to the top of Google was you put hard work into building authority in, what mattered to you, what mattered to your company. And then a few years ago, everyone started creating automated garbage. And now Google's picked up on it.
Yep.
And, you just have to go back to hard work to stand out. And I think this is going to be true for all outbound. I think slow outbound is going to win.
Yeah.
And honestly, all of this automated outbound tech is going to be obsolete.
I do too. I tell sales teams when I'm with them that I've in my whole lifetime I've never and I guess let me say this: salespeople have always killed the things that work, but we just did it slower than AI does it. So if we found like a technique that worked, everybody would start using it, and then everybody would, the buyers would catch wind of it, and then it wouldn't work anymore. In my lifetime, I've never seen something get killed as fast as email prospecting. In 9 months, we're going on 12 months, AI broke it. And because of what you're experiencing. And one of the biggest problems is that when a rep wrote an email and it was a crappy email, but I knew a person wrote it and they sent it to me, I would just delete it. But when AI sends me an email and I know it's completely automated, I don't just delete, I delete and block, because I don't want the thing to keep sending me emails, because I know there's not a real person behind it. So I don't, and as a sales executive, I don't want to hurt somebody's feelings, because I teach salespeople, but I just block it because nobody was working on it. And even these SDRs, like we got an email the other day ago, and we actually, one of my people researched it. I said, this might be okay. Like we might want to talk to these folks. And they went and researched it and said, this human being, this person that signed it doesn't exist. And I went, oh, okay, well, trash that, because it's not a real person. So I think we've got to be very careful, and like the automated calls, there's somebody working on voicemail. In the book here, I just said, I wrote down all these things. I said, that's going to end badly, that's going to end badly, that's going to end badly. And I love that what you said, slow prospecting is going to win. Humanity is going to win. You're going to have to go back to the basics to stand out, because the bot can just send emails and make phone calls forever. Like it has no compunction whatsoever. And I'm going to give you the worst example that ever. This happened to me for real. Ulysses over here was my distraction, but I got an email and it was a subject line that curiosity kills the cat, caught my eye, and I opened it. And the first sentence, I knew that a robot wrote it, because it grabbed my tagline off of LinkedIn. So my company name and my tagline on LinkedIn are linked together. And so the robot just scraped that, and then they put it into the first sentence. And I said, well, I always know a robot wrote it. And I immediately went, oh, crap, robot. So I closed it. Ulysses, we were doing a podcast. I turned around, have a few minutes of conversation. Ulysses is our producer. You can't see Ulysses, but he's over there smirking at me. And he 30 minutes later, I had a conversation with him. I came back to my laptop. I had 6 more emails with the same subject line from 6 different companies. They were all using the same AI platform. And what does AI do? AI says, oh, that email got opened. Let's send more of those. And slow prospecting, you might see that, but you wouldn't send another email to the next day, and nor would 6 other companies see that, hey, that worked as well. That's what AI does very poorly. And I love what you said about, you got to go, here's some ideas, you got to be able to write it. You've got to learn how to write. In this book, we talk about as salespeople, we need to understand grammar and we need to understand how to edit our robots. I use my robot to write. I use my robot to build stuff for me, but everything gets edited. Everything gets humanized. Everything gets, like, that stupid sentence gets taken out. That's a robot pattern. We're not saying that. It can get you there, but it can't get you all the way. And the salespeople who set it and forget it are the ones that are going to lose going forward.
Yeah, definitely. I've talked to so many sales leaders that ban sequencing tools and AI email tools.
Yeah.
We've started to work with customers now that said, we bought one of these AI SDRs 6 months ago, 9 months ago, and they just ripped through our TAM.
Yeah, I know.
And now we're in a dark spot because we've been blocked by 10% of our TAM.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And there's nothing wrong with sequencing tools. The problem with sequencing tools is it just became spam bots for you. So a sequencing tool can do a really great job for you if the first touch in the sequence is a synchronous touch. Pick up the phone and call someone. If you're using it to tell yourself that I'm going to send a handwritten note, it's okay to send an email that you craft, and I do believe that those emails will stand out because people will recognize that you're behind it. There is an opportunity to do social touches, so a sequencing tool should help you guide a series of touches over a period of time, but it shouldn't be a set it and forget it. Let's push the button and we're running an automated sequence. With the time we have left, Keith, I got two questions. Would you be kind enough to give us sort of an overview of Tome and what you do? I think we've talked a lot around it, but you're probably much better to kind of walk us through your value prop. And I've just got a couple of closing things I want to run through with you.
Yeah, sure. So I would say we're building a co-pilot for sellers, and the big thing we do is with any AI strategy, any AI company, I think the most important thing to get right is the data. So we will go and pull together thousands of public data sources and marry them with everything about selling internally, with the CRM, with customer support tickets, with call recordings. And then we'll build this sort of research corpus and give you an interface to solve problems with it. So you can use it to rank your prospect list. You can use it to set up, you can use it to almost set up alerts for, is a prospect hiring ahead of AI? Have they crossed this head count threshold and that sort of thing? And then we'll sort of learn on top of it. And then, once you've decided you really want to sell to this company, we'll help you understand it. And we'll help you understand it through the lens of your company's selling framework. We'll help you with ideas to write an email to the right buyer. And then we'll help tweak your company's discovery questions and your discovery questions so that you can ask questions from a POV. I would say that a lot of folks buy Tome for better prospecting, better expansion, and then they end up using it more than their CRM.
I love it. Very good. Yeah. And it's Tome.
Yes.
Are you .com or .ai?
We are .app.
.app. All right, cool. Yeah. I actually, when I went to research you, I just typed in Tome, and after the dictionary gave me the definition of Tome, you're the next one down. So I didn't even look at the URL. So you're doing a good job with SEO. So it was pretty good.
Thank you.
I imagine that as a growing company, that you're looking for great people and great talent as well. And there's probably people here that are listening to you and they're thinking, Keith sounds like a pretty good boss, and I'm thinking the same thing. I mean, you're a good dude. I mean, you've got a great perspective on sales and on AI, and I can't begin to tell you how impressed I am with just what you've learned through your process and how quick you've just kind of picked it up and put it together for your business. If people wanted to talk to you about a potential career down the road, where would they go?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm trying to build out my enterprise sales team now that things are working. So I would say send me a LinkedIn message. You can also send me an email, Keith at tome.app. And honestly, just send me a personal email, to tell me why you would, tell me about your perspective on how you'd sell Tome, who you would sell it to, and would love to get in touch.
I love that. And he knows AI. So if you have your robot write the letter, he's going to know. So Keith@Tome.app, Keith@Tome.app. If you're interested in a career, and it's Keith Peiris. I'm going to spell your last name because it's just an interesting spelling, but it's Peiris. Is that correct? So you can catch up with you on LinkedIn. And if you've got a sales team and you're looking for better targeting, you're looking for better data, and you're really ready to start pushing the envelope on elevating your sales team as humans, and giving yourself more time to spend with people, and what we say, more time to sell more, then reach out to Keith and reach out to Tome and get a demo. I think it's worth it. You've got all the right perspectives. This is exactly, for me personally, in my heart, as a executive, as a CEO, as a sales trainer, this is where I want to see AI going, so that it truly is a plug-in for us. And Keith, I just want to tell you, thank you so much for spending time with me today. It's been a pleasure. I'm gonna go study some physics. What is it? I'm gonna go learn how to be a physicist this afternoon. I know Ulysses already getting the YouTube stuff for me.
Thanks, Jeb. This is great.
and folks, thank you for joining us on this episode of the Sales Gravy Podcast. And listen, if you want to learn how to sell better, sell more, go to Sales Gravy University. All the things that Keith was talking about that he learned along the way through Hard Knocks. We've got 40 of the top sales experts in the world who are putting both on-demand courses and live workshops on Sales Gravy University. It is truly the most powerful sales training engine on earth, and this is why more than 40,000 sales teams and salespeople across the globe use Sales Gravy University. And if you've never taken a course before, go to learn.salesgravy.com. Let's learn.salesgravy.com and use the code FREECOURSE to take any course in the catalog. We'll see you next time on the Sales Gravy Podcast. Hey, I'm doing a happy dance because you watched this video. Make sure that you click like and subscribe so that you never miss one of our amazing sales training videos.